Hello everybody and welcome to Project Trade. This is the trading highlights show, all the best bits from our testing of trading strategies. Today we're on a technical trading strategy which is going to leverage two technical indicators to try and find some trends for us. Our first indicator will be the 80 period simple moving average, the simplest of all moving averages, hence the name. This is an example of the visual that we can expect to experience once we throw it onto the chart. Our simple moving average, it just adds together all of the individual prices from the last 80 periods and then divides that total by 80. And secondly, we'll be using the relative strength index. That's right, the RSI is going to use its momentum to jump us onto those trends. Might seem counterintuitive, as traditional teaching would likely lead us to using indicators like the RSI for reversal trades, but it's certainly becoming more common to flip that teaching on its head. Here's what the RSI is going to look like. It's a single line range bound oscillator with a maximum reading of 100 and a minimum reading of 0. We're using the default period input from Wells Wilder, which is 14 periods. Classically speaking, the levels would be set at 70 and 30, but we've set the levels in our example here as what we're going to be using when we go live, which are the 60-40 levels. We have made videos on both the relative strength index and the simple moving average, which are linked in the description if you'd like to learn more about either of them. But for now, let's find out how we're going to use those indicators to determine our actual entry criteria. The 80 period simple moving average will be used as our filter for the overall market trend. So when price is above the 80 period average, we're only going to be entering buy trades, and when price is below the 80 period average, it will just be the sell trades. And then when it comes to the RSI, if the simple moving average is telling us to take buy signals, then we'll enter a buy trade when the RSI first closes above the 60 value. If the SMA is leading us into sell signals, then we'll hop into a sell trade when the RSI first closes below 40. Here's a solid example of a decent entry that we've cherry picked out. The price shifts above the moving average, giving us the go ahead to get into buy trades, and the RSI reading gets above 60 as well. Even if you weren't in immediately on that candle and got in on the one after, there is still a run on price which should see you into profits, unless of course you're the epitome of greed. Which does bring us to the fact that unfortunately we are also going to have to manage our money. So to start us off, we'll be utilizing an indicator which will tell us when to shut down our trade, and that indicator will be Bill Williams Accelerator Oscillator. Here it is, a zero line crossover histogram. You're not allowed to meddle with the indicator's settings, but we have selected the ever so elegant colors of green and red to represent when the accelerator value moves up or down. The accelerator oscillator is calculated by taking the value from the awesome oscillator indicator and subtracting from it a 5 period simple moving average of the awesome oscillator. And for those unfamiliar, the awesome oscillator is calculated by taking a 5 period simple moving average and subtracting from it a 34 period simple moving average. No more time to explain it here, video and description if need. When it comes to the strategy though, we are going to exit out of our trade if the accelerator oscillator closes across 0 against our trade. So if we're in a buy trade and the accelerator closes below 0, that's our exit, and vice versa for the sell. Even if our simple moving average or relative strength index changed to an obscure reading drastically against our initial entry signal, those indicators are only getting us into the trades. It has got to be the accelerator oscillator that gets us out of the trade from the indicator front. But don't worry, we are going to run our trade with a trailing stop loss on as well, as we don't want to rely entirely on the accelerator oscillator to get us out, no matter how mediocre we think it is. So if we're in a buy trade for the uptrend, we'll set our stop loss at the lowest low of price from the last 14 periods. That's the same amount of periods we're using for the RSI. Logical. And flippity flip for a sell trade, we'll set the stop loss at the highest high of price from the last 14 periods. It means that for each trade, we'll be able to measure out the distance in pips to our stop loss just before we enter the trade. So then we can decide how much of our capital we are willing to lose if price goes all the way to that stop loss. And I can tell you now that it will be 2% of our capital per trade that we are risking. So for example, if we're in a buy trade, the stop loss will, as we've said, be the lowest price of the previous 14 periods from our entry price. If price then goes against us and triggers the stop loss before the accelerator oscillator signals us to exit, then we'll have lost 2% of our capital. Seems like a reasonable amount to risk, unless you lose over and over and over and over, of course. The last notes for us then, we'll be trading the strategy on a 15-minute time frame, not too fast, not too slow. This one will hopefully be just right. And we're going to be looking for opportunities to trade on 3 different Forex currency pairs. We don't want to be looking at every single chart there is, taking signals up, down and middle, but at the same time, just sticking to one chart could leave us sitting on our hands with nothing to do for a time too long. Also, those 3 currency pairs will need to total 6 different currencies so that we're not overloaded all in on one particular currency. And so without further ado, we will spin the wheel, and the 3 currency pairs that we'll be using, they will be the New Zealand dollar US dollar pair, the Great British pound Canadian dollar pair, and the Euro Australian dollar pair. Those are our currency pairs, and sadly I was not born with a photographic memory, so we will have to journal the trades to make sure that when all is said and done, we can have a reasonable and accurate assessment of the strategy as a whole. Well, that's everything. Let's get into the platform and make some trades. These are the charts, and we do have their indicators pulled up as well. So this little purple line here, 80 period simple moving average. In fact, I call it purple colored, but it is clearly dark orchid. Anyone can tell that. Meanwhile, our RSI, we can see levels at 60 and 40, and the inputs 14 periods. Both are indicators applying themselves to the close of price, nothing controversial there. And just as a quick scan, I can see we're a bit away from a New Zealand dollar US dollar trade. That is currently 34, the RSI, so it would need to come up over this 40 level and then cut back through. So 2 moves needed for an entry signal there. Great British pound Canadian dollar, this is a lot closer. The RSI is floating around about 57. If this candle here was to turn green, closed in 5 minutes or so, if it was to turn green, the RSI likely would get above 60. And we can see the price is above the moving average, so we'd be in. Euro Australian dollar, this had a run up. We wouldn't have been able to get in on this move here. But now the RSI is down around 58. If we saw a green candle come, then price would be above the average as well. Definitely potential for a buy trade there. So those 2 on the right are the ones we're a little bit more focused on. But that doesn't necessarily mean something. I mean, even now on this center chart with the pound CAD, we can see RSI up at 59. We're going to have to watch this one. Just having a look, and if we were doing a stop loss from around about there or so to the lowest low of the last 14 periods, that would be that candle there. So you're looking around about 28, 29 pips if it came higher. And there we go. Now we do see the RSI move just a bit above 60. Before we dive into taking a look at our economic calendar for the day to see what events are on, let's just check this, because RSI is about to close above 60. We've got 2.5 minutes. 30 seconds until the close of the candle. It does look as though we are going to get the signal. Let's just measure that one more time. Around about 31 pips. That's what we're going to go for. That allows us to calculate our risk so we can open up for a new order. You can see how the risk is done on the screen. And there we are. The close comes, and so we can get into a buy trade here. This price comes back down. So let's set the stop loss first on the trade, just in case it does plummet against us. We better set a trailing stop loss for it. Customize that. Again, 31 pips, 310 points. Locked in. Now let's take a look. We can see the stop loss pretty close to the bottom there. And we better pull up a Bill Williams accelerator oscillator. Nothing to change here. And it is still good at the moment to our favor. If we see red candles like this though, and honestly, this right here, this green candle is looking like a very minor retracement on the pattern. Hopefully we're wrong and it's sort of making a range here to go back up. But right now we can see the RSI is going to dip below 60. That's not a close signal for us. But the accelerator oscillator has been pounding down from these red candles. And it will not take long to cross at all unless we see a reversal soon. No take profit, so we really are going to need to see a bump on the accelerator oscillator, hopefully before it comes back down, eventually crossing over. Although I've got a feeling it is going to come a lot sooner than that. Let's take a look at the economic calendar. Korean quarterly GDP coming in as forecast, but at least it's a boost, and at least it's not a miss on the forecast. It does give the yearly GDP an actual of 4% versus forecast of 7.6. Now that is a bit more of a miss, but people are paying closer attention to the quarterly. Also had Singapore industrial production month on month, negative 2.8 versus negative 4.2. Not a good reading, but better than the forecast, so there we go. And not a lot of events on our calendar today. 11:30 and 25 minutes, the Hong Kong trade balance. Nothing then until 3 o'clock in Brazil for the mid-month CPI. Speeches then at 3:45, both in the Eurozone. We've got the Bundesbank Vice President Bach making a speech. And we've got ECB Supervisory Board Chair Enria making a speech. Yes, they are the Eurozone, but not expecting them to have any impact. It will be a volatile time though once we get to 3:30 and it pushes through, especially on at 4:30. We are going to see a volume increase, a volatility increase. It's when the American markets open up, the New York Forex session, and then the stock exchange. We've got a couple numbers from the US as well. 4 o'clock, the house price index composite 20, year on year forecast at 19.6%. So the 20 part of it is that they look at 20 different regions of the US, big metropolitan areas. So I imagine it covers places like New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles. But it is a year on year figure. So 19.6%. Yeah, classic house prices. And then more property news at 5 o'clock, new home sales. It's the monthly figure forecast at 0.722 million. That'll be an increase of 2.2%. And at the same time, at 5 o'clock as well, we've got the Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index. How are the consumers feeling about the economy? They survey about 3,000 households. All right, so yeah, not really any big times for us. I mean, 5 o'clock might have an impact, but generally we're just expecting more volume at 3:30 and then even more on top of that at 4:30. Those are going to be the big areas. If we are going to get spiked out, something like that could cause it. We can see our trade not going so well. Still away until the stop loss. I imagine it's going to get knocked out by the accelerator oscillator from this downward momentum. But the Euro Australian dollar, that looks like it's also getting close to a signal. It is. RSI at 59.42. Two barriers for this one to jump. Not only would the RSI have to get above 60, but it has to go far enough to get above the moving average. Gotta have both signals when the time comes. And we haven't seen a high in this period that's actually got there yet. We've got 6 minutes to go. See if that trade comes, as this one really plummets against us. And if it doesn't knock us out via the stop loss, then it will likely be a flip over of the accelerator oscillator at 11:15 and then a close on the period after that 11:30. But if it goes rapid like this, just another one or two of those candles and that is it, gone. 2% of our capital. Let's keep a close eye on that. End of the period comes and we don't get the signal on the Euro Australian dollar. On the pound Canadian, we do see the accelerator oscillator flip. We're already about $64 down. And it's a big flip as well, bigger than we would have hoped for, although not surprising from this momentum. So we'll need price to come back quite a way. I mean, even if it gets back above our entry price, at least we'd take profit then. I don't think it would be enough to flip the accelerator still, but I wouldn't mind some profit. At the moment, not looking good. 14 minutes, 15 seconds to change that. 1 minute to go until the close of the period. We had come pretty close to actually getting all the way back up. You can see that high there, only about 1 pip off our entry price, but since then receded all the way back down. Meanwhile, Euro Australian dollar keeps threatening the signals to if price finishes above the moving average. The RSI will finish above 60 as well. Had looked for a few moments like we were almost certainly going to get an entry signal. Now it's dropped back down. Still potential, 20 seconds to go. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. This would have been our 14th candle, so up to there it's about 41, 42 pips for the stop loss. Meanwhile, close does come, pound Canadian dollar. It is not good for us. We have to manually close that one out because the accelerator oscillator has finished below zero. Would have been really nice to be back up at that high there. Let's pull up the trade history. Yeah, up there, only a couple pips off the entry. Granted, we would have paid for the spread as well, but it would have been around about $20, $30 loss maybe instead of 62, 63, which is what we face. Not a good start when we're less than an hour into the day. Just coming into 12 o'clock now. RSI is kind of loitering, certainly on the left and right, very close to the 50 center line. Our nearest signal is on the Great British Pound Canadian dollar again. You can see our previous trade there that we exited not too long ago. Price has made a rebound. It's almost backed up our entry price. RSI circling 57. If you saw another green candle like this, there's a good chance we'd be in with a buy trade up here somewhere. And the RSI storming above 60 on the Great British Pound Canadian dollar. We can see it currently at 64 and we have got 8 minutes left until the close of the candle, so about halfway through. Hopefully we get a bit of a pullback. Would rather get in if it's just over 60, around about 61. Don't want it pushing into new highs. It's already on a bit of a strong run these last few candles. System be systeming. Well, a pullback from this high up here at least, but still not the most confident in its entry position. It's going to be around about the high of the day. And let's just measure out that stop loss This is our 14th period right down here, so we can clip that on. We'll call it 31 points there. So you can see our risk calculated on the screen now, which means we are going to be getting in with a buy trade here. And there we go, right at the high of the day after the spread is taken into account. Doesn't look good for us. Potentially would have been nice if we were still in this buy trade if we hadn't been taken out, but there we go. Such is life. 310 points for the stop loss. And of course, we'll set it as a trailing stop loss as well. And this is a bit of a moment of truth. Has the accelerator oscillator flipped back above zero? It has. In fact, it closed their last period. So that is plenty good to see, which means we wait for that to reverse before we do any closing of the trade. Naturally, though, we would like it to keep on going, have a stronger Great British Pound. Anyone as well who follows the Hong Kong trade balance, that did come in negative on forecast. It was negative 42 billion Hong Kong dollars against forecast of negative 33 billion Hong Kong dollars. We can only hope that this confidence in the pound from this run here is going to continue. Does look to me like we could be getting in at a resistance level though. Prove me wrong, chart, prove me wrong. You know, I was focusing so hard on the pound Canadian dollar trade that I've just noticed that we should actually be in a trade over here on the euro Australian dollar. We're still going to take it. Price hasn't run that far. We can see the RSI did close at 60.32 and this was above here. So let's calculate that. This is the low from the last 14 periods. That is wild. That is a frustrating low. Quite a big difference there, but that was 460 points, so we'll go for 46 pips. So there we go. That is our calculation done pretty quickly there. We should have been in this about 4 minutes ago, so that's a mistake on our part, getting too laser focused on the pound CAD. So here we go, in with 0.49. That's a buy trade for the RSI above 60 with price above the moving average. And our bumbling nature did actually get us a better entry position though, as price had come down a bit. Let's get the accelerator oscillator up and take a look at that. And pretty awkward on the accelerator oscillator. We can see it's still just below zero at the moment, so we need that to flip, which means we need to see a green candle come. Otherwise, it is going to be closing below zero. It does happen from time to time where the accelerator oscillator is the other side to where you expect it to be, but it is not part of our entry signals, only the exit. So we've got to follow that system to be technically correct, the best kind of correct. If you did want to add a filter on that said the accelerator oscillator has to be above zero for buy trades or below zero for sell trades, that I would understand. 2 trades going though now, neither of them to our favor, and we do get the flip on the accelerator oscillator, gone to a positive value now as price surges up to new highs. It's good, so we get to stay in the trade assuming it closes that way in 3 minutes time, and then if it wants us to close out, it'll have to flip back the other way. Just had the close of the period and both of our trades are still good to carry on. Keeps us in hope of profit. Coming up to 1:15, pretty mixed on these trades. Pound Canadian dollar actually coming to our favor after a nice green candle here. But Euro Aussie dollar over on the right, that's gone reverse into red, not what we want to see. Let's look at this New Zealand dollar, US dollar though. Left hand side, we are actually seeing RSI currently pushing at 61.96. Looks like it will finish the candle there, and of course we see price above the average. This is our low from the last 14 periods, so we're looking at around about 22, 23 pips. We're going to go for 22, we'll call it. And with 22 pips, you can see how that gets us to the risk that we want. It's 2% right down to the bottom there, and we can enter a buy trade here. There we go. Spread's not the best as usual, but let's punch in that stop loss. 220 points, and we can see kind of near the low. Probably another pip in there, maybe 23 pips would have been slightly better for the risk, but we're in the region, so let's pop that trading stop loss in as well. 220 points, easy done. This trade, yeah, I'm not sure. Zoom back, it's right at a resistance level that we've seen here, here, here. Broke through there, but come back down. If it did break through again like that, we're absolutely fine with getting up to this resistance level, clearly, but it all seems a bit far. I think this price is going to see a retracement, and that might flip the accelerator oscillator. But speaking of, let's pull that indicator up. At the moment, nicely above the zero level, not too far out there. Been coming down off the back of these candles, but hopefully it pushes on, gets back up to these highs with some good momentum. Canadian dollar trade at the moment, that's got the most potential for us right now. I want to see that Euro Aussie dollar flip as well, otherwise the accelerator oscillator will start heading towards the zero line. Already on the way there. This is only going to speed up. Let's have a run like this again. Don't want to be in at the top of that. 1:45 now, and over here on the right, These charts are pretty convoluted. I don't like having as much stuff up as this. But anyway, over here on the right, Euro Australian dollar, we can see the accelerator oscillator down here. It's flipped 0. If it closes that way, which is pretty likely that it will, we'll be manually closing the trade off. So what we're hoping for now is a candle just out like this one over here. That would be ideal. Come all the way up. And even if it can't flip the accelerator, minimize our losses, maybe get us a little bit of profit. The other two trades just sort of loitering, not a lot going on. We did have a good high here on the pound Canadian dollar. Thought it was going to go on quite a run there. At the moment, though, receded from that high, leaving our fates still uncertain on these two charts. And it looks like we will be closing down this Euro Australian dollar trade for about a $25 loss. There it goes, manually shut down after the accelerator oscillator closes against us. At least we didn't hit another big red candle, just like that one. Of course, the worry that we're seeing with this strategy already, with the RSI at around about 54, we could see a couple green candles pump it right up above 60 and get us back into a buy trade near around about the same area that we got in the last time. For now, though, it is a loss $25.02, which puts us $87.65 down for the day. Started at $8,472.27. Not going well, but at least these two trades over here, the left and the center, they are moving in our favor. We want to see that continue, particularly this New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We can see big green candles coming. It's pushed into new highs. Let's have some more momentum with that. Just after 2:30, over on the right, the Euro Australian dollar. Looking like a good thing that we left the trade right there at the moment, as we did get two consecutive decent sized red candles and looking to form a third one as well. Meanwhile, Great British Pound Canadian dollar ticking along, been in a range for about the last hour or so, hasn't moved too much. Naturally, we would like to see another breakout, just like over here on the left, the New Zealand dollar, US dollar has been running really nicely to our favor. As long as we don't see a reversal in price, should eventually be some profit in this one for us. Currently, these two open trades, $167 up for us. If we end up closing them for around about that amount, we'd be in profit for the day. Great British Pound Canadian dollar, here's the flip on the accelerator oscillator. Not a super convincing one, but it is there. Assuming it closes like that, we'll be shutting out the trade. Be interesting to see where this candle goes from here. If it's one like the last few, almost certainly it will be a close. If it can find a new high, get up there quite a bit, and it might just turn it back and keep the trade open. Well, this is very disheartening. What a candle we've had here. Downwards and downwards, all for the 15 minutes. And when we close this off now, we're not even going to take any profit. That is very disappointing for us. We were about $50, $60 up. This is what we kind of expect with this. Try and get in on a bit of a push and then have a range consolidated where the accelerator oscillator goes back over. But it was just one period too late. If we got out of the initial crossover without the full close and confirmation, that would have been profitable. But sadly, as is, that is our third loss of the day, the second one on the pound Canadian. And so we are hanging our hats and our hopes on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar pair, which has been going red against us for the last 30 minutes or so. Doesn't mean that it won't be a retracement though, on a big move to come. There's potential. There's the flip on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We see accelerator oscillator across 0 now. I've got that sinking feeling where I just see a large red candle in our near future. Really want to take home some profit on this one. Don't expect a giant red candle to reverse this accelerator, but just hope it doesn't plummet all the way down at a profit for a fourth consecutive loss. That would be pretty suboptimal. Our candle here had made a high to the good. It's only got 1 minute left now, but it's gone red. Looking like it's going to be the fifth consecutive red candle, cutting away at our profits more and more, down to $29 at the moment. We're keeping an eye on both these other charts as well, particularly the pound CAD. Quite a lot of red candles on the bounce, and it is almost pushing the RSI beneath 40. Same on the Euro Aussie. Price not below the average on the pound CAD, but these are both very close to a signal at the moment. 15 seconds until the close, and actually our candle on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, very fortunate here, right at the end is going green. We are ready to cut this off. As soon as it rolls over, we want to take our profits. Don't want to risk this at all, not even for a second. There we go, shut it off. We have taken profits there. Brilliant stuff. And if we look over here, we can actually see RSI. What did it finish at? 40.66 by the look of it. Almost seems like it's touching through there. Can't see one pixel of it, but this is determined to tell me that it is 40.66 that it finished. So no entry for us on either of these just yet, but red candle comes on the Euro Aussie dollar. That'll get us in. 4 o'clock. We'll watch out for that 14.5 minutes time. But our trade finally back in at $57.76 from this one. Pretty good win in the end, only $43.98 down now. If this pound CAD one had just stayed up in that range there, we'd probably have been in a little bit of profit right now. Can't stay bitter about that one forever though. It's on to bigger and better things. Look at that, Euro Aussie 39. Very much watching for the sell trade to come on there. Hopefully momentum hasn't exhausted. Let's zoom back out. I mean, we've been caught out on a buy trade for this. Good thing that we stopped out there. Is this going to continue though? Let's see at 4 o'clock. And this trade is really going to be jumping onto the bandwagon. We've got 1 minute left until the close. Price has really plummeted the last few periods. Let's measure out our risk, which is from this high right here. It's the highest high from the last 14 periods. Well, at least price is receding a bit now. We are going to call it 50 pips for our calculation. And there we go. There is that close. It's telling us we can get into that sell trade. And so that we will do. Trailing stop loss. This is going to be way at the top. Not expecting to see that proc. And certainly not expecting to see this trade and stop loss get into effect. But we better set it anyway, just in case. There we are. Really am expecting a reversal and the accelerator oscillator to eventually flip in a few periods time and close it out for some form of a loss for us. Probably not much because of how far 2% capital is away. Quite a high there, but still some sort of loss expected. A bit of a crack on the system and how it can work. I noticed this looking over the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Obviously we see our trade closed here. That was after the first histogram bar. Right down here we closed. If you look at the RSI here, 59.27, so that's come below 60, which means at the close of this candle here, it was at 61.78. So that is technically telling us to get into a trade right at the start of this candle, which was where we left the trade according to the accelerator oscillator. Fun times. Never saw a bandwagon we didn't love. The Great British Pound Canadian dollar giving us the same signal. We're already seeing the damage being done to us on the Euro Australian dollar. Almost $30 down there. Immediate reversal against our trade. Completely expected. Now, same thing on the Pound Canadian dollar. Let's measure out what our risk will be. We'll call that 41 pips to the stop loss. And so we know what our risk will be. The price is below our moving average. RSI 38, 39, thereabouts, floating up and down. But here comes the close. Many red periods in a row. Am I expecting more? No, not really, but that's our system for you. So there we go. 410 points on the stop loss right at the top there. And let's trading stop loss that as well. Custom 410 points. Alrighty, could work. These charts going pretty wacky at the moment. Euro Australian dollar on the right, it's come back down price. We see a red candle that matched the previous green. Kind of near our entry price at the moment, although we do see it coming a little bit green at the moment. Could be instant reversal on an instant reversal. And the Pound Canadian, I thought it was going to be really nice for us. You can see where the low is down here, so it moved about 10 pips to the good and then retraced all the way back up to finish quite a bit green with a nice high there. Well, not nice for us, but nice if you're trading in favour of it, I suppose. That's how it's going at the moment. Uncertainty remains on both of our trades at the moment. They are still in a loss, around about $15–20 a piece, but we could certainly see downward momentum becoming a thing. Let's just do a quick update on the calendar. Brazilian mid-month CPI month on month for everybody following this. And I know a lot of my listeners are. 1.2% actual that came in against 0.75% forecast. Not surprising to see a Brazilian CPI actual higher than the forecast. Compared to other countries, they are having a relatively more of an inflation issue at the minute, as is the fashion in South America. 4 o'clock, that house price index composite 20 year on year. It's pretty much as forecast, 19.7% versus 19.6% the forecast and 19.9% previous. These are, well, yeah, they're good figures for anyone that owns a house, obviously. Pretty poor figures for all the young folk out there that want to get on the market. Seeing these kind of rises is very disappointing for people like that. Unless, of course, your wages went up by that amount in the same year. Doesn't seem probable. And we're just waiting now for the new home sales month on month to come in, along with the Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index. All US dollar numbers still to come. And that is the last of the numbers for the day. After that, not even any speeches in the evening or any trading statistics. These are the last ones. And now we do have those numbers. It's positive for new home sales. With all this demand, it makes sense as to why the prices are up that much year on year. So we've had 0.8 million actual against 0.72 million forecast. So obviously that's up on the forecast and up on the previous as well of 0.74 million. Marked down as a percentage below. They got 8.1% actual against 2.2% forecast. So big beat for that. Customers happy for new home sales and also happy about the general economy as well and the mood of business. Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index actual 113.8 is the score against the forecast of 111.5. Not much of a beat, but still good to see for the dollar. 5:45, and we are seeing the accelerator oscillator flip here, only very narrowly finished beneath zero. Now it's above there. It's certainly looking like it is going to be a loss. So there's been a long range here, and this looks like the potential breakout. Euro Aussie dollar hasn't seen the flip just yet. Still beneath zero, but getting ever closer to there. If we see a green candle come, that'll flip as well. 15 seconds until we close down this trade on the Great British Pound Canadian dollar, and it did get a lot worse this candle. Big green has stepped into the market. The buyers are here. It's receded a little bit from that high, but in 1 second we shut it down. And so there we go. Let's have a look on the history. $63.99. That trade turned really poor. We didn't expect much because we knew it was coming really deep into a momentum run. Then we did get a bit of a surprise though, when price ran down quite nicely. Bounced back up though, stayed in a range, no problem with the range, but naturally the reversal comes. And had we closed once again before confirmation of the flip, but just once the accelerator oscillator flipped over, probably would have saved us about $30 or so. That candle was not appreciated at the end. Now we have just got a sell signal as well on the New Zealand dollar US dollar pairing, but it's getting a bit into the evening now. 6 o'clock just gone is the time. So we are going to ignore that signal. We're going to close off that chart, close off the pound CAD chart, and we're going to focus simply on our Euro Australian dollar trade. Watch that one out. Has been going quite nicely for us this last period. Around about $17, $18 to the good at the moment. Hopefully we get some more of that before this accelerator oscillator eventually reverses across that zero line. Almost 7 o'clock, and we're about to close off this trade in 30 seconds. The accelerator oscillator moves above zero. And once again, we've been crushed on the confirmation candle. If we'd exited the trade here at the start of the candle when we saw the crossovers beginning, well, we could have left it around about flat, maybe a touch of profit. But as it is, we are going to close it when it rolls over 7 o'clock for another loss in the day. 6 trades, 5 losses. Oh, not good. Something I was concerned about to begin with was whether we'd be able to take profits well without using an actual take profit level, just basing it off a single indicator. And that hasn't really proven to be the problem yet. The problem at the moment seems to be getting into trades too late. It's like at that stage, price is already wanting to just about reverse. If we look at these Euro Australian dollar trades as the examples, we can see, I mean, if you're taking profit there, then you're not really giving it a chance to run at all anyway. So it's not going to be a good system if you're taking profit, 5 pips in on the 15-minute chart. And then vice versa here. You've got about 12, 13 pips down. So it's a little bit more room, but again, you're quick off the gun if you're taking profits around about that level. So unfortunately, a very poor day. Not the worst losses in the world. We end at $8,327.99 for the day. When we did have a winning trade, it was pretty nice, $57.76. But when you're running 5 losing trades for every 1 winning trade, you're unlikely to stay in profit. Hopefully we get some more consistent trends tomorrow, something a bit more lasting that really wants to push instead of just range and knock us out or reverse and knock us out. These crossovers are really doing us in. Looking out for a little bit more good luck tomorrow. Let's just check out those trades over in the journal to end off the session. That's the journal. Not proud to be looking at this one. You can see there $144.28 down just after 1 day. Nobody's eating tonight. Started off poorly. Immediately the pound CAD getting us in. That first buy trade yet really went against us sharply. But this was the problem trade. The pound CAD, the second one, it really looked like we were going to get some profit out of that one. Strong moves in our favor, ranged a bit, but just as we were about to close, plummeted against us and all the way into a loss. And that last candle, we were $50 up, finished at $14 down. Not a lot you can do about that if you are waiting for full confirmation on the crossover. Then a small loss and a decent win on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar to get us back into the mix. If these last 2 trades have been good, then we might have been able to scramble ourselves back into profit, but unfortunately they were both losses. We did expect it. As soon as we saw the entries, the momentum looked so strong already, and it is rare for momentum to just carry on indefinitely. So no shock at all, those ones turned to be pretty big losses. But again, that crossover bar on both of them we were only looking at a small loss for each of those pairs, maybe around the $15, $20 mark or less even. But then the accelerator crossed zero and it just crushed us. And we've tested the accelerator crossover on zero and we didn't crush it to the good. So I think the entries are a bit late and we're also having a touch of the bad luck. We'll try again tomorrow. Things might get better.